The paint hits Thomas Whitaker before the crowd does. 8 reckless words slashed across his foundation's sterile banner. If you still draw, you still live. A security guard drags a skinny black kid away from the pillars. Thomas steps in, fury cold as ice. You think graffiti cures leukocytes? The kid tilts his chin unafraid. I think your boy quit drawing the day you got scared. The line lands harder than any headline. Evan, pale wrists, empty sketchbook, monitors counting what used to be summer, hasn't touched a pencil in months. Thomas has tried everything but permission, and now this stranger says the one thing Thomas will not, that fear changed the rules. They meet again under I-9, where the kid paints for bus fare and forgives no lie. He calls himself Malik. He draws a chalk circle on the concrete, leaves the bottom open. Art's not medicine, he says, but it gives medicine somewhere to go. I need data, Thomas scoffs. You need a door, Malik answers, tapping the open circle. Evan's nurse forces a thin smile when Thomas brings up the bridge. The chief physician calls it misdirected coping. The board calls it brand risk. But after midnight, when the machines click like metronomes, Thomas remembers the banished sketchbook, the day he hid it, to keep Evan focused on fighting. The word fighting suddenly tastes like metal, so Thomas returns to the bridge with Evan's ruined book, the way a man returns a thing he stole. 1 hour, he tells Malik, in a controlled room. No promises. Malik nods, palms stained in cheap blue. 1 hour is a promise. They set the rules. Clean table, safe pigments, mask nearby, nurse on watch. Malik draws 3 short strokes, left, right, down, like a heartbeat learning to stand. Evan watches, jaw tight, eyes glossy with the grief of a summer he didn't finish. Malik doesn't look at the monitors. He looks at the boy's hands. You don't have to win, he says softly. You only have to draw. And Evan, almost in spite, reaches for the pencil. The pencil floats, then trembles, then rests against paper. A whisper of graphite trails across a torn page, one uncertain line, then another. It's not art. It's a pulse. Thomas hears it before he sees it. He feels it in the way the room forgets to hum. That's enough, the nurse says, but she doesn't mean it. Evan licks a dry lip and draws a 3rd line, completing Malik's quiet ritual. Left, right, down. The slightest color returns to his voice. It's crooked. Good, Malik says. That means it's alive. The chief physician arrives with a clipboard and a forehead like a stop sign. We can't conflate stimulation with recovery, he says. We can chart vitals, not feelings. Thomas signs the compliance form anyway, the billionaire as petitioner at his own court. When the doctor leaves, the silence floods back in. That's when Thomas breaks. Evan, he says, I threw your sketchbook away the day we got the diagnosis. I wanted to keep you focused. I was wrong. The pencil stops. Evan breathes a thought through his teeth. You took my color. He doesn't cry. Neither does Thomas. They hold the truth between them like a fragile bulb that might glow if they don't squeeze. The next hour is a rumor of movement. Small circles, shaky triangles, a shadow that won't sit still. Malik keeps his promises small. 3 strokes before meds, 3 strokes after. Noise, the doctor mutters, skimming numbers. Rhythm. Malik answers, counting breaths. By the 4th session, tiny nothings stack up into something you can't quite deny. Grip strength ticks upward a hair. Sleep evens out. Laughter arrives like a stray dog, nervous and hungry. Thomas offers to double Malik's rate. Malik refuses money and asks for ink. The board calls with liability concerns. Thomas says, then chart attendance. The 5th night, a scare. Evan's breathing dips midline. Alarms bleat. Nurses swarm. Malik doesn't move toward the bed. He sets the pencil upright on the table, like a lighthouse. Evan's eyes find it. The tide returns. Leave it open till you're ready, Malik says, nodding at the first page's circle. Doors before walls. And Evan, this time, nods back. They make a right of it. Malik asks Evan to draw the thing that scares him, not as a monster he must slay, but as a shadow he can resize. Evan sketches a dark shape crouched at the edge of his bed. Each stroke slows it. Each breath shrinks it. Thomas doesn't speak. He counts with them, feeling his own fear lose inches. At the midpoint of the 6th session, Malik returns to the chalk circle. Today, we close it, he says. Not to trap you, to claim you. Evan's hand wobbles. The circle completes. The room doesn't cheer. It settles like a lake after a stone. Progress breeds doubt in public. A hospital memo labels the gains anomalous. Cameras arrive, catch nothing but a tired kid drawing and a billionaire learning to wait. Correlation isn't causation, the chief physician says into 3 microphones. Maybe, Thomas replies, but abstention isn't protection. Then comes the moment no lens sees. After a long breath, Evan speaks without panting. Dad? His voice is papery but steady. I heard him before the bridge, in my head, not words, just a door. Thomas's shoulders fall an inch, the weight rearranged. Malik's mouth twitches, almost a smile, almost a prayer. I don't fix bodies, he says, quiet enough that only 2 people hear. I remind hands. They tune the regimen around the ritual. 3 strokes wake the day. 3 strokes soften the night. On bad mornings, Malik draws an X on the floor with white tape, a tiny stage. Evan steps to it, draws in air, rehearses courage. On good mornings, the pencil touches paper immediately, and the shadow obeys. Reporters keep asking for miracles. Thomas refuses the word. He talks instead about attendance, about consistency, about the dignity of showing up when you can't promise an outcome. The circle that used to gape open on Evan's page now appears on Post-its, sneakers, the corner of a lunch tray. Not wings, not victory. A door. And because doors exist to be used, Evan walks through a little farther every day. The day Malik hands over the brush, it isn't a ceremony. It's a Tuesday, fluorescent and ordinary. The brush is battered, bristles splayed, handle nicked by a life that traveled without packing cases. Malik turns it in his fingers, then holds it out. It's yours, he tells Evan. Finish your circles. Evan studies the scars in the wood, like a map he already knows. Will you stay? Malik shakes his head. I'll be under the bridge, doors for other hands. Letting go hurts clean. Evan doesn't clutch. He sets the brush in a jar like a flag planted. Thomas watches the transfer with the reverence of a man who almost missed the miracle by asking for paperwork. He doesn't ask for numbers anymore. He asks what wall to clear. The hospital stops calling the gains anomalies and starts calling them attendance effects. It's a bureaucratic phrase for a human truth. Thomas funds art corners in clinics with no logo bigger than a child's first name. He refuses naming rights. He has already named too much. Evan insists on teaching 1 hour a week, even when fatigue bites. The ritual goes public. 3 strokes at the start of every session, 3 at the end. A circle that stays open for the next kid to finish. On a rainless evening, they walk back to I-9. The banner is gone. The columns are stories now. Wild color, shaky lines. Small hands learning to trust themselves. Malik is there, paint on his knuckles, laughter in his eyes, still thin, still dangerous to despair. Evan touches the chalk mark at the base of one pillar, the place where Malik always leaves the circle open. He closes it with a soft turn of the wrist, then draws another one beside it and leaves that one open. Thomas doesn't give a speech. He doesn't need to. The city is saying it for him. Kids chant without meaning to. A low chorus that makes the concrete feel like cathedrals. Not wings, not victory, just doors. If we still draw, Evan murmurs, more promise than boast, we still live. If we still draw, we still live. The words don't echo. They seed. Within a week, the clinic's old storage room grows tables, light, a jar of battered brushes. Thomas funds it without speeches. He signs invoices like apologies. Mornings begin with 3 strokes. Evenings end the same way. Between them, kids fill the hours with crooked suns and brave, messy circles. A girl named Maya arrives with her hoodie up and her jaw set. I'm not sick, she says. I'm tired. Then draw tired, Malik answers. Make it smaller than you. She tries, fails, tries again. The paper forgives her. Paper always does. Evan sits nearby, not a miracle, but a mirror showing the way without performing it. He's quieter now, taller inside. Down the hall, the chief physician rewrites a policy memo to sound less like a barricade. Attendance effects, he calls it. Thomas doesn't argue the term. He sweeps the floor after sessions, a billionaire with a dustpan, and if anyone laughs, they do it kindly. At lunch, Malik passes Evan a marker. You lead the warm-up. Evan hesitates, then draws the 3-stroke rhythm in the air. Left, he says. Right, down. The room follows, breath by breath, like a small choir relearning a hymn. Not everyone believes. A board member demands metrics and deliverables. A parent demands a cure. Malik refuses both. Doors before walls, he repeats, tapping the open circle on the whiteboard. Let them step through. Maya draws a door with a dented knob. She writes one word above it. Later. Good title, Evan says. Better promise. That evening, they return to I-9. No banners left, only color and the low, steady crackle of spray paint. Malik sketches a new circle and leaves the bottom open. Your turn, he tells Maya. She breathes twice, closes it, then draws another right beside it and walks away. Not a miracle, a practice. And practice is what lives do when they mean to keep living. The hospital wants forms for everything now. Consent for pigments, protocols for breaks, a line that says this is not medicine, and another that says, but it may help medicine. Bureaucracy, pinstriped and earnest. Thomas signs, then puts the pen down for good. He's learned to ask different questions. How many chairs? How much light? The chief physician arrives with data sliced into neat squares. Vitals are stable during sessions, but not because of sessions, he argues. We require a control. Malik shrugs. The control is the child who doesn't show up. You can keep him. They compromise without saying the word. The art room stays. The cameras stay out. Midweek, a boy named Caleb goes pale in the middle of a circle. Alarms chirp. Nurses move. The room tightens like a fist. Malik doesn't clap or shout. He turns Evan's old trick into a lighthouse. Pencil upright, standing watch. Find it, he whispers. Find the line that's yours. Caleb's breath scrapes, then steadies. His hand returns to the paper like a bird that almost didn't. The alarms hush themselves, embarrassed. Afterward, the memo writes itself in Thomas's head. We are not hunting miracles. We are building habits that survive storms. Reporters ask again for causation. Thomas gives them attendance. We chart who shows up, he says. We cheer when they do. The board grumbles about optics. The foundation's PR team drafts language that would make a sunrise sound like a liability. Thomas deletes 3 paragraphs and leaves one sentence, where silence ends, healing begins. On Friday, Malik tapes white X's in a simple grid. The kids step from square to square, drawing in air, turning anxiety into choreography. Even the doctor watches from the doorway, and though he won't say it, his forehead relaxes. When the session ends, no one claps. They don't need to. The room itself has learned to wait, to hold, to recognize a pulse when it returns. And in that small, stubborn quiet, policy becomes hospitality. He never meant to be a mentor. He meant to survive. Thomas finds him at a diner that smells like coffee and second chances. No press, no files, just 2 men, and a counter that has heard everything before. Tell me about the line, Thomas says. If you still draw, you still live. Malik cracks a grin that isn't bravado. Stole it, he admits. A teacher said something like it when I was 10. I sharpened it till it could cut through noise. He draws on a napkin, a circle open at the bottom, the gap like a mouth refusing a lie. I used to leave them under bridges, he says, for the kids who didn't have keys. Thomas nods, the kind of nod that counts as confession. I took my kid's key once. I called it discipline. And then you gave it back, Malik says, not letting him drown. The story unspools. A shelter with lockers that jam. A boy named Dre who taught Malik to draw hands before he disappeared into a system with no sketchbooks. A social worker who saved a few. A city that saved the rest by accident and graffiti. Malik stops talking. He doesn't want pity. He wants paint. Evan walks in carrying a small print he made from one of his pages, the circle, the 3 strokes, a tiny door sketched in pencil like a joke you only tell the brave. For you, he says, awkward, proud. So you don't forget to rest sometimes. Malik laughs. I rest when the bridges do. Bridges don't, Evan replies. That's the point, so sometimes you have to. They eat pancakes. They draw on napkins. They don't solve anything except the next hour, which is the only one that ever lets you. On the way out, Thomas tries one more time. We could put you on staff, benefits, stability. Malik shakes his head. I can't clock into a door. I can only leave it open. And somehow, Thomas understands. By spring, The pillars of I-9 look like a choir. Every color sings. The clinic's art corner has multiplied. 2 more rooms across town. A Saturday workshop at the library where the noise is holy and the rules are simple. 3 strokes to begin. 3 to end. Leave a circle open for someone new. Evan teaches without a halo. He stumbles sometimes, sits when his legs complain, laughs when a kid draws a dinosaur with a crown, and names it anxiety. He's not healed like a headline. He's living like a verb. Thomas has learned how to be quiet in public. He lifts boxes, he labels jars, he refuses podiums, except to hand them to parents who never ask to be brave, but are anyway. The chief physician still loves data, but he's learned to visit the room where numbers don't lead. He stands in the doorway counting breaths for no one's report, and when a parent thanks him, he says, "Thank them," and points to the brushes. Malik disappears for a week, then 2. No crisis. Just orbit. When he returns, paint freckling his wrist, the kids act like he never left. Doors do that. Once you've walked through, returning is part of the path. They plan a mural night under I-9. No ribbon cutting, no speeches, just lights strung low and chalk buckets wide open. The city arrives as if summoned by rumor. Evan steps forward, brush in hand. He draws 3 small strokes in the air. The crowd follows, 1,000 wrists finding the same rhythm. Malik sketches an open circle on a blank panel and steps back. Who's first? Maya closes it, clean, sure, then draws another and leaves it waiting. Someone starts a chant, soft at first, then bigger than any microphone. Not wings, not victory, just doors. Thomas watches from the edge, unneeded in the best possible way. He presses a palm to a pillar that used to be just concrete and feels it answer like a drum. When the lights dim, the last thing the night keeps is a field of open circles, breathing. They will be finished tomorrow by whoever needs to live tomorrow. Morning doesn't announce itself with sunlight. It announces with 3 small strokes, left, right, down. A wall calendar blooms on Evan's door, tiny circles penciled into squares, half left open, half closed, a language that doesn't need translation. Thomas stops measuring silence in minutes and starts measuring it in breaths returned, pencils sharpened, chairs filled. Some days are bright, some days are gray and long. On the gray ones, fatigue sits on Evan's shoulders like a cat that won't be moved. He lowers himself into a chair without apology. We keep the rhythm, he says, voice steady. We don't demand the solo. Kids nod, solemn, relieved. They draw crooked suns and doors with dented knobs. The room understands. Maya takes attendance like a deacon. She writes names, then circles, open or closed, letting the page tell a truth the body can't always say aloud. The chief physician stands in the doorway, counting breaths that no chart will ever truly hold. Thomas learns a new skill. He waits. He retrieves water. He sweeps. He asks, "How much light?" More often than how much time. He stops clearing his throat to fill a room and lets the pencils do it instead. Silence is no longer our language. He tells the nurse one evening, almost shy. She smiles without looking up from a report. "It never was," she says. "You were just fluent." At night, the ritual expands across the apartment like gentle weather. 3 strokes before sleep, 3 in the morning. A note taped to the fridge. Doors before walls. Evan's shadow sketch, smaller now, hangs by the table, not as a victory, but as a map he no longer needs every mile. The clinic adds a Saturday hour. Parents bring coffee, leave laundry baskets in the hallway, come back with lighter faces. Evan leads warm-ups, then yields. His job is not to be a miracle. His job is to be present. They are building a life that can carry weight. Not forever, not perfectly, just long enough to get to tomorrow, where more circles wait, patient as breath. He returns without announcement. 3rd time since stepping back. Same bridge blue jacket, same paint freckles at the wrist. Malik pauses at the doorway, catching a room that no longer tilts toward him. It tilts toward the work. Evan is mid-ritual with Caleb. 3 strokes in the air, then paper. "Hold the down stroke a heartbeat," he says. "Let it land." Caleb obeys. The line stops shaking. Malik doesn't interrupt. He walks the perimeter, eyes catching small altars. The jar of battered pencils, the taped X's, the calendar of circles, the photo of the chalk halo from under I-9. On the center wall hangs the brush, his brush, framed not like a trophy, but like a promise someone kept. Evan notices him last. He doesn't sprint, doesn't pose. He comes over like a person who has learned that presence is louder than flourish. "Hey," he says, simple as doorbell chime. "We kept the room soft." Malik grins. "You kept it yours." They stand in a pocket of quiet while the room hums around them. Attachment versus autonomy, aching like a pulled muscle you learn not to favor. Malik reaches into his bag and pulls out nothing. He's already given what mattered. "It's yours now," he says, allowing himself the echo. "Finish your circles." "I will," Evan answers. He doesn't add for you. He doesn't need to. Thomas watches from the sink, hands wet, heart steady. He wants to speak, to honor the man who lit the first match. But the match became a candle, and the candle became a room, and rooms don't need speeches to stay lit. Malik moves to leave, then pauses at the framed brush. He taps the glass once, light enough to make no sound. "Absence can be holy," he says to no one in particular. "Leave space for it." He vanishes the way doors do, not by closing, but by being walked through. The room does not sag, it expands. They stop calling it a pilot. They start calling it a practice. The Whitaker Foundation funds open access art corners in clinics, schools, libraries. No velvet ropes, no plaques the size of small billboards. Thomas refuses naming rights with the soft stubbornness of a man undoing his old reflexes. "If our logo is bigger than a kid's first name," he says, "we've missed the point." Meetings shift. Metrics arrive in their dark suits, wanting to weigh what won't hold still. The chief physician brings charts that behave, and that helps. But the room has learned another grammar: attendance, consistency, the stubborn ceremony of showing up when certainty won't. A board member asks for causation one more time. "Meaning must be measurable," she insists. Thomas nods, not unkind. "Then measure what we can," he says, "and host what we can't." He leaves one sentence at the top of every proposal, a banner softer than the old ones. "Where silence ends, healing begins." Evan designs a small mark for the program, a circle closed in ink, then a second, open beside it. Not a logo, a reminder. He teaches 1 hour a week, even when fatigue drags its heels. He hands off the chalk to kids whose hands shake, whose jaws set, whose eyes learn to forgive themselves. Maya runs Saturday sessions with a whistle and a grin, a general of gentle wars. Press arrives and finds nothing theatrical to film. They find people working, they find doors. Sometimes, after hours, Thomas stands in a doorway and listens to rooms he funded but does not own. Brushes clink like wind chimes in a place with no wind. He breathes easier than he used to. He speaks less. He writes checks that aim at quiet. And the city learns new routes. From clinic to library, from library to bridge, from bridge to kitchen table where 3 strokes open and close a day. The elixir turned out not to be a potion. It is a practice poured by many hands. It starts where it started, under I-9. No banner now, only pillars that remember. The night hums with lights strung low and the soft hiss of spray cans singing vowels. Kids arrive with pockets full of chalk. Parents arrive with folding chairs. The air smells like concrete turning into story. Malik doesn't stand on anything. He stands among. He draws the first circle and leaves the bottom open. A door cut from quiet. He steps back. The city inhales. A little boy in dinosaur pajamas toddles forward and closes it with a wobble that makes strangers cheer like family. Another circle, left open on purpose. Hands line up without order, each one finishing someone else's beginning, leaving a beginning for the next. Ledger people count attendees. Lyric people count breaths. Both are right. Evan lifts a brush and draws 3 strokes in the air. 1,000 wrists echo. The sound it makes isn't sound at all. It's decision. A teenager writes above a circle in hurried block letters, "If we still draw, we still live." The phrase doesn't belong to anyone now. It belongs to everyone his teacher ever saved, to every underpass that remembers how to listen. Thomas stands at the edge, unnecessary and grateful. He doesn't prepare remarks. He prepares tables, cups of water, a trash bag on his wrist. He has learned the difference between leading and hosting. Maya starts a call and response without trying to. "Not wings," she says, stamping a foot. "Not victory," the crowd answers, laughing. "Just doors. Just doors." When the lights finally go dark, the pillars keep their glow, the way good stories keep speaking after the mouths go quiet. Open circles wait like held breaths. They will be closed tomorrow by whoever needs tomorrow. And under the bridge that made a city brave, a line endures in a dozen hands at once, living where belief used to ask permission, echoing until permission is the only thing no one needs.